Hello everyone, and welcome to the GTA 4 tutorial part 2. If you've enjoyed playing GTA 4 as much as I have, and trust me, I really enjoy GTA 4, I've logged hundreds of hours playing this game, and it's kind of what happens when you don't have a girlfriend. But anyways, modifying the cars in GTA 4 is all about making them drive better. It's not necessarily about driving them faster, but making them more fun. Because by default, the GTA 4 cars are too slow and they kinda handle like the space shuttle. And when I say make these cars go faster, I'm not talking about making these cars go faster like the $1.99 value bin racing game you find at Walmart go faster. I'm talking about making these cars go faster in a realistic fashion. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten about drifting. If you make cars go faster, they can naturally drift more, because they have more speed and power, and that's the same in the game as well. So the first thing we're going to be talking about changing is the drive bias. Having a value of 1 here basically makes your car front wheel drive, 0 would make it rear wheel drive, and 0.5 would equally distribute the power between the front and back wheels, making a 4-wheel drive system. And if you decide to put 0.3, it will give 20% more power to the back wheels than the front. In the game and in real life, a front-wheel drive car has a tendency to understeer when accelerating through corners, and they don't power slide either, because in order for that to happen, there has to be enough power to the rear wheels. A rear-wheel drive car accelerating through a corner has the tendency of oversteer, which can be used to power slide, or drift the car, or to do donuts. That's because the car is losing traction in the rear wheels, and that's what gives it the ability to slide around like that. And in this example, I've put a value of 0.32, which means 32% power goes to the front wheels, and the rest goes in the back. Notice how that the understeer effect of powering the front wheels helps me not to oversteer the car too much and spin out, helping me to do these long drifts. Setting the value for the drive gears is pretty simple. It's how many gears you have in the car. If you only have 1, basically you end up doing something like this. Now, if you have too many gears, like 10, you're going to be doing a lot of shifting, and there's a little bit of time in between the shifts where you can't accelerate. Just a fraction of a second, but it does add up, especially when you're trying to drift around corners. So this is what happens. So, keep it around 5. The drive force value basically means the power output of the car in the game. An average car in the game has a value of 0.15 or so here. You can make it 0.3, 0.5. If you go higher than that, it becomes a little bit tricky to handle the car, because the suspension will be too soft and the car won't be able to corner well enough. But we'll discuss that later. Drive inertia is set at 1 for every single car in the game, and you can make this all the way up to 5 if you like. Basically what that does is it makes the power output more urgent. So basically the drive inertia is the power output urgency, and if you make this number lower, it's going to have the opposite effect. Like for example, 0.5 would make the engine power output delayed. The velocity value basically sets the maximum speed of your car. It's in kilometers. No car in the game can go over 288 kilometers an hour. This is the universal limit of the game. The brake force value is another obvious one. Don't forget to change this as you change the power of the car. The more powerful the car, the higher the speeds, the more braking power you need. If you make the car 2 times as powerful, make the brakes about 2 times more powerful. And that's the rule of thumb here. The brake bias determines how much of the braking happens in either the front or the back wheels. Now if you set this as 0.5, It's distributed evenly between the front brakes and the back brakes. They have equal amount of power. If you set this 0.6, you're gonna have 60% braking in the front and 40% braking in the back. More braking in the back behaves more like an e-brake, and more braking in the front causes more understeer when you're trying to brake and corner at the same time. Now that's if you don't lock up the brakes, which means the brakes, if they're too powerful, when you press the brakes and it locks them up and your wheels aren't moving, you're not going to be turning. The handbrake value is set around 0.7 for most cars. Now you need to set this higher if your car has more traction. It's obvious. So this is basically the strength of your e-brakes. The steering lock value basically determines the angles of the turned wheels in the front and how far they can go. So every car has pretty much 35 here. But if you make it 40, you can steer more. That's basically all that means. When you go up to a ridiculous number like 90, you can expect that when you turn your wheels all the way to the left or right, your car's gonna be braking because the front wheels can't turn anymore. And that's pretty obvious. When you set it to about 75 or so, this kind of causes graphical problems in the game, so I wouldn't recommend going that far. The farthest I would go is about 45.